Okay. Uh, John, did you want to make comments before the public hearing or after I open? Okay.
Um, This is a public hearing for the consideration of the establishment of a planned unit development on 70th Place. By law, we notify everybody within 250 feet of the property, excluding roadway. So most of our letters went out to people who live in Burr Ridge, some to Indian Head Park, but that was the legal notice requirement. So we sent out about 50, 60 registered letters. So I take it you got a letter? Okay, we also posted a sign at the entrance to 70th Place alerting people to call Village Hall. So that is the extent of it. So we're going to explain what staff is trying to seek with the establishment of a planned unit development tonight, and then we will hear your comments, and then we'll close the public hearing, and then the board, or the Planning and Zoning Commission will consider it, and then at the September meeting, they will formalize the planned unit development and send their recommendation to the village board in the form of an ordinance for their approval. So that is the process that we are going through tonight. Somewhat similar, although somewhat accelerated, from what we did with the triangle planned unit development. So we're basically looking for a framework for development. So that is what we're looking for tonight.
Okay. And I'd like to open the public meeting at this time. If I can entertain a motion to open the public hearing for the establishment of a planned unit development for 70th Place.
So moved.
Okay. Danielle moves. And a second. Second is Justin. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're now in public hearing. And maybe we should start the public hearing with a representative from Venture One. If you want to tell the audience a little bit about the project.
So thank you guys for having us back. We appreciate you taking the time. And, you know, subject to you telling me that you think it makes sense for me to do, I know I went through all the steps last time in terms of what we were thinking, why we were thinking these types of uses and this type of planned unit development would make sense for this site. I could go through all that.
Maybe just something abbreviated, and then any questions you can respond to.
That's great.
I would
yeah.
say that's sufficient.
So for introductory purposes, my name is Matt Good. I'm with Venture One Real Estate, the potential developer owner for this site here in Indian Head Park. We are very excited about this opportunity to partner with you guys on this. And so just to go through a couple key points, what we're looking at here is a series of parcels that are currently zoned, but not zoned for the industrial uses that we think could be the highest and best use for the site. We also understand that there's interest from the village's part, for obvious reasons, to generate sales tax on this site, which we think there's a possibility for. So what we've done is we've outlined a number of uses which we think could be a good fit for this location, all of which would likely generate jobs, generate additional property taxes, and then potentially generate sales tax, which is not being generated today. As it sits today, the site is currently being used for truck storage, which is also potentially it's a functional use for the location. And one of the issues which we've talked about is there is a parcel that we don't have control of, which isn't necessary for every development scenario of this site. Certainly for like the equipment sales, for certain plans that we might execute for truck terminals or terminal facilities or repair facilities, that site wouldn't be critical. But in a lot of the scenarios we've outlined, that site would be critical. We have been working with that group of ownership to acquire that site. And I think the position that we're in is we are actually, I should say, we're uniquely positioned, I think, our company, Venture One, to take this on without having certainty of that parcel. And that's why we're here today.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is we're comfortable buying the site, taking the risk that ultimately we'll get that parcel. In the meantime, continuing forward with the current use potentially while marketing it for these other uses and trying to acquire that parcel.
Mm-hmm.
We are continuing to try and work with the family that owns it to acquire it. We've made them offers. We've had discussions around it, and we've been in communication with them. But as of today, we don't have control of that.
Okay.
So again, because of our mindset, because of our long-term mentality in terms of what we think this site could be, we're very comfortable taking it, purchasing it, moving forward, buying it. It's not contingent upon getting that parcel. As long as we think for the long term we could have zoning that works to redevelop the site per the plans we've outlined, we would move forward today and then pursue those uses.
So right now, do you have contracts contingent on zoning for the rest of the sites?
We do.
Nice.
We do. So the other sites, and we've done our due diligence. So we've been through due diligence. We've been through environmental, all the physical diligence that we would typically do. We've gone through, and really at this point, we're subject to getting this zoning completed, and then we would close on those parcels, which are all one owner.
Great, great. Okay, I think I'll open it up to the public hearing, let people ask questions or make comments.
That's great. Yeah. And
Thank you,
we're
Matt.
here to
That
answer
was
those. Thank you.
great. If you do step up to the podium, if you would identify yourself and give your address, we'd appreciate that. Are these for distributions to anybody else or no?
We have for you guys,
Okay.
if there was anybody who wanted one, definitely.
Yeah. Does it, yeah. Yeah.
Amy Jo Wittenberg, 6120 Timber Ridge Court. So seeing that you have contracts that are contingent on the zoning, I'm assuming that you're probably under some type of non-disclosure, or could you tell us what the potential type of use would be for those potential contracts that are for the leases that you have if the zoning goes through?
Sorry, so to be clear, do you want me to, is it better if I'm up here?
Is it better for the Zoom? Yeah.
So just to be clear, we have contracts to purchase all the parcels. So we're under contract to buy them. We don't necessarily at the moment. We don't have contracts to lease them or to sell them to another user at the moment. There is a tenant who's operating under a short-term lease agreement on, I guess as we would define it, 3 of the parcels, and another short-term sort of handshake lease agreement on the other. So there's a possibility that tenant would stay shorter term or maybe for not a long term, but for some type of longer term, or that we would then seek a new tenant for the site while figuring out the remainder of the parcel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I remember from the last meeting, is that it's probably going to be status quo until everything is ironed out.
In all likelihood. Although, our intent is to begin marketing it right away.
Oh, great.
And, really to the extent that you could find one of the uses that doesn't require the other parcel, we could move forward with that.
Got it.
With a, redevelopment that didn't require it.
Great. Commissioners, any questions or anybody else from the audience have any questions? Did we cover it enough? Yeah, I mean,
I know we were gonna plan on doing that traffic study as well
Yes.
as we move forward.
We're gonna do it, the question was, are we gonna do a traffic study? We're gonna do an initial one in-house, just to kind of establish a baseline. Any further development where new uses are coming in, I've spoken with the developer, they are aware of the traffic study that needs to be done. The issue is, if we just have a very non-intensive use there, with 2 or 3 cars a day, traffic study isn't needed. But if we're gonna have a large trucking facility or a large warehouse facility where we would have 500-600 trucks a day, then we would have to have a traffic study done. And that, any new developer would do that anyway. So I'm just thinking of things that the developer needs to be aware of. They know what they're doing, but I wanted to get it out just to let everybody know what the thought process is.
and those will all be terms within the PUD.
Correct.
Yeah, so we'll have,
So when
all-
specific site plan comes in, the traffic study will be part of that.
I see, yeah. Okay. A lot depends on exactly what we're talking about.
Right. So one of the things that I noticed in our,
John, is your microphone up? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I had an issue where they couldn't hear you very good. Thank you.
Because too far away.
Can you hear me now? Okay. One of the things that is a nuance in our zoning code is I don't see the requirement for any development of this type to go have any review process other than staff review. So, and that's my take, and so I think that is not the best way to do things. So in the PUD ordinance, we would have the requirement where any development has to go through staff review, then planning and zoning, and then ultimately the village board. It gives three sets of bodies a look at the development. It involves the public a lot more, and I think it's just the right way to do things. So that is something that we will be doing as part of this plan unit development. We also implemented pretty much the same thing when we did the triangle. So that is, we're just keeping suit with that.
And the PUD then eliminates the need to change the zoning? Or
Correct,
just by
because we have a
ordinance?
zoning overlay.
Yeah, because the zoning is not appropriate.
Right, so one of the things that the PUD would allow, if you decide, would be the warehousing. That's not allowed in the B5 zoning district, so we would add that as an allowed use.
Yeah, so our next meeting, we'll have a lot more to discuss as far as all the specifics with the PUD.
Well, that will be a framework, and then future development will require further review. Not necessarily a public hearing, but still further review before you.
Yeah, yeah. So today, we really want to come to some agreement as to, do we want to move forward with this plan? And anyway, we're still in the public hearing, so is there any other comments or thoughts, or? Because we'll close the public hearing if there's no other thoughts on this matter, and then revert back to commissioner. So may I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
Motion to adjourn the public hearing.
And a second? Second, Dan. And all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries to adjourn the public hearing. So we can continue discussing if we have any more details to discuss. Again, we're going to go into all the weeds, I think, at the next hearing as far as all the details of the PUD. John, will that be in, how is that going to work when you draft the PUD? Will that be in collaboration with Venture One?
Yes, I will get there.
Those will be kind of meetings and,
The question was, would I draft the PUD in conjunction with Venture One? And the answer is yes. I will
Okay.
seek their input, and then it'll go before you.
so at this point, it'll probably be just a structure that could go this way or that way?
Correct.
Okay.
Remembering that one of the nuances of a PUD is it allows a certain flexibility on everybody's part. For instance, right-of-way setback requirements, rear yard setback requirements can almost go away, especially the parcels near I-55. I mean, it's kind of pointless to have a setback against I-55, so there's some flexibility there.
Yep.
With parcel 5 or the cross family.
Actually, it looks like we have a member of the Cross family here tonight.
Ah,
At least somebody signed in with that name.
oh, okay.
Are we only including the parcels that Venture One has under contract in the PUD, or is the cross property?
It's the entire 70th place parcel.
Is the cross?
I just, this is the first I've heard about it, honestly, you know, as far as the plans, first I've looked at those. I mean, yes,
You might come into the microphone, I'm sorry, because we record this and, you know, I'm sorry, we want everybody to hear you.
I just said, this was the first that I've heard or seen the plans actually laid out of what they had intended to do. I've spoken with you on the phone, I think, a few times that we were talking, and I'm trying to get my two brothers to come to some terms and find out what all's going on. I live in Michigan, so I'm kind of out of it,
I see.
so.
What occurs, what's happening at the property today?
Right now, my younger brother has some friends of his with various businesses renting some of the spots there.
Okay, so nobody's living.
No, not currently.
So the PUD can be drafted if this, then that, and
Correct.
if this, then. So we could move forward, right? We can move
Yeah.
forward with the PUD, not knowing the fate of.
We need
yeah,
to chat after the meeting.
Okay.
please. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. You mentioned in your statement that there's a possibility for sales tax. Based on the number of developments that you guys have done throughout the state, do you have a sense of what that probability is? I mean, is there a way, like, just having like do you have like a estimate of, is it 50-50? Is it, 60-40? Do you have a sense as to whether or not there'll be a sales tax generating property within the development?
So, I would say in our business, it's always very hard to put percentages on things. But what I would say is, in my experience, this is a very good site and a very good location for the types of uses that would potentially generate a sales tax. So those kinds of things like equipment sales, truck sales, you could see, all different types of industrial types of yards that you would find that would sell equipment and things that could be used for industrial purposes would really like this location. The access is great, the 294 access, and having 294 and 55 access is really, and this location being close to the city. So, I actually think that's the highest and best use. I really do. I think that some type of site like that would be the best use for this site. I also think it's a good warehousing site. I do think it's good for some type of e-commerce use. I really do. I think, again, for the same reasons, access, population, access to labor, I think make it attractive for that. So, but I think it's better than 50-50. I honestly think it's one of those where you could see it at a 50-50 probability, where you could generate some sales tax.
That would be nice.
Can you guess behind the 90-foot height request?
I'll get good exercise today. That's good. Stay up here. So, you're familiar with, I'm guessing you probably know why we would want that. So what we're seeing in modern, current e-commerce standards are changing the way we think about industrial real estate. And what we're seeing is that there are footprints and designs of newer buildings that use, we've always gone higher vertically with industrial just historically. Buildings were 10 feet tall, then they were 12 feet tall, then they were 16, 20, and they've just gone up. But what's happening today, which is really sort of innovative, is we're seeing certain companies, particularly for e-commerce, take advantage of multi-level buildings in order to facilitate what we'll call last mile distribution more efficiently. And so that is probably specific in this case to that type of use. But, again, we think it's a possibility here. The site, to be honest, is a little small for what we see today. Those types of buildings that we're seeing are on much larger sites, but that has evolved so quickly over time. I could definitely see circumstances where in the future that type of user would say, we'll apply that same type of building to a smaller site for some type of last mile e-commerce type use.
What was
So
that
that-
term? Last mile?
Last mile.
And what does that mean?
So, when we look at how the supply chain today has evolved for e-commerce and for what we're all doing, right? So we all wake up every day and you're sitting at the breakfast table and you say, I'm out of Ziploc bags, right? Instead of maybe particularly during, this pandemic, but in general, instead of going to the store to buy them, you go on Amazon, you buy them. What actually happens when you do that is those Ziploc bags are likely sitting in a very large warehouse somewhere. So the types of warehouses that you'd see down in I-80, maybe along I-55, could be anywhere.
Like Shanahan?
Could be by Shanahan. I was just in one in Shanahan. And so they sit in that location, and when you order it, it triggers a series of events that are going to occur for that package to get from that big warehouse to you. And typically it'll stop 2 or 3 times along the way, 1 to 3 times along the way. So that order goes through, it gets picked out of that warehouse, it then gets sorted by zip code into either another warehouse where it gets sorted again, and then eventually to what we'll call last mile warehouse. What that means is it's the last step before it gets to your house. And at that point, it's going from typically what would be a semi-trailer, larger, sequences of packages, groups of packages to what would be, going into a van.
Yeah.
And so, historically that's been FedEx and UPS. Those are really the original, and people don't think about them that way, the original, last mile delivery companies. And today, a lot of different types of retailers are using that. So that's when I say last mile, it means that.
Very good. Okay.
This location's great for that because of all those types of buildings like to be around rooftops, meaning households, because that's who's ordering the packages. So in this location, you have a lot of households in the area, which makes it a good location and access to highways. So it has a lot going for it as it relates to that.
Yeah. Oh, great. Good to know. And that ratio, I didn't understand what that was. The floor area ratio in B5 shall not exceed 1.2, and B6, 2, and the developer suggestion 4.0. Ratio of what to what?
So it's
The
John, were you
floor
gonna answer
ratio,
it?
floor area ratio.
So it's just the area of floor to site.
Oh, to
so
site.
so
Okay.
if you put a building over the whole site, it would
Got
be
it.
1.
Yeah, got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So it just means that we would maybe go multi-store 4 times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but with the POD, it's a lot more flexible.
And in theory, that would be, the positive for you guys to that type of higher floor area ratio is the building becomes more expensive and generates far greater property taxes. So if we built a 90-story, 4-story building, it would be significantly more expensive and
Yeah.
more tax based.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
Are there any height requirements because of the highways? Is that going to come into play or with 294?
No, it would not.
Okay.
Really, the only time you have to worry about that is when you're near airports.
Okay.
Fire department okay with it?
That is, remains to be seen. I did have conversation with Venture One today about if we go 90 feet, that we would have to have the fire district as part of the approval process. This is only based on conversation I've had with a couple trustees, but I think right now they can only go up 7 stories with their ladder truck. So we need to have special consideration for that.
Wouldn't the fire district have approval rights regardless?
No, we would be the final authority on that, but we also want to take into account the health and safety of the community. So ultimately, that would be you and the village board.
So from a permitting perspective, this is after we approve.
Yeah.
We love the building.
Well, we would have them,
Navigating the
we would
permitting.
give them plans for them to sign off on,
The fire department.
the fire
Okay.
district, yes, but we don't have to accept their signature, so to speak. I think it would be foolish not to, but we could. You have to remember, I deal with
Recommend against
what we can do and what we should do. So,
So,
that was something that caught me by, not surprise, but when I read 90 foot or 95 foot in the B zoning, I actually went back to our original zoning ordinance for B6, and it's 95 feet. So I was like, that just
How
seemed
tall are condos?
7 stories,
Okay.
so.
And it really is forward-looking on our part. I don't know that it's the probability. If you're asking me a probability of that happening, it's probably lower. We're just seeing this ever-evolving design in industrial buildings, and if it was something that we could do, we'd love to.
And you can design it with the health and safety of the community in mind at 90 feet, even if they only had a 70-foot ladder. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I didn't exactly get the concept of the contract zoning. I got the spot zoning, but the contract zoning didn't Can anybody define that for me? Where I'm looking at the disadvantages of the PUD.
All right, so what I provided the Planning and Zoning Commission was an excerpt from the zoning handbook as prepared by the Illinois Municipal League. And they had 4 pages on the pros and cons of planned unit developments. One of the things that we want to avoid is the appearance of saying a quid pro quo.
Yeah, that's.
And that is
okay.
really contract zoning, so we want to avoid that appearance.
Okay.
And that's why we're having the public hearing, and it just is, it's illegal to contract zoning, so.
Yeah, okay, okay, so it would be for the wrong purposes essentially that we'd be doing this.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Anybody else have questions or comments? John, you want us to take a vote tonight?
No, just a general consensus.
Okay, okay. So how does everybody feel? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
Yay.
Yeah, I like it too. Like it too, yeah. We generally like it. Yeah.
Buy that 5th parcel.
Yeah. Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask Mayor Hinshaw to step forward. He has a few comments for us and going to apprise and update us on a few things.
You guys don't have to stay, I mean, you want, you're welcome, but thank you.
Yeah.
See
Thank
next
you,
meeting.
thank you very much.
All right, thank you all for serving. I wanted to give you an update that we are talking about at the board because it's been here before you. Fences and sheds. We've talked about fences, I think, a year ago or so when a group came. So since that time, John has sent letters out to how many properties? 60th properties about a fence or shed that has not either been approved by the board or falls within our ordinance. There's quite a backlash, I guess is fair to say. And so the village board, starting Thursday, will talk about our options. And I think we're still gathering options. I know Amy was going through ordinances today, so thank you, Amy. So it will be discussed this meeting, probably next meeting. Hopefully we'll get to an answer soon. But, so that issue is ongoing, and again, I just wanted to give you an update on that. The board has also talked about buckthorn as a weed, and I think we talked here about what's a weed and what's a noxious plant. So that's ongoing. And then lastly, the sidewalks. It was a good month in that the county approved the phase 1 of the Wolf Road sidewalk from Plainfield down to 79th Street, which is exciting. It's a $1.8 million project. It'll take at least 18 months.
Wow.
Then there'll be a phase 3 and all that. We've also, in the recent state budget, had $4,125,000 allocated for infrastructure for a sidewalk along Joliet Road. We're still learning about what we need to do to make that happen. But we know the next few steps, and so we're proceeding through that. It's a 6-year budget, and I think what I've heard is everybody feels comfortable that will happen if nothing bad happens. And the last few years we've had a lot of not good things happen, right? So who knows? We'll find out.
Wow.
Plainfield Road, the little bit of sidewalk from the bridge to, what's that, access road? What do we, by Yelp?
Frontage there, yeah.
Yeah, that's proceeding. That meeting is kicked off. That'll be a multi-year project. So that'll be from, I believe, County Line Road all the way to East Avenue. So exciting stuff. And so as part of like Wolf Road, as an example, there's buckthorn along the road today. So if the board moves to eliminate buckthorn and other, I forget the names of the other ones, honeysuckle, that will change the dynamic on that corridor. The board has talked about fences. We haven't said yes, but we've talked about it along Wolf Road. So, a lot kind of moving and shaking on the sidewalk front. And some of that fence and buckthorn, a lot of people use buckthorn as the divider in their backyard. And if we do something with that, that's kind of like taking a fence away, not quite a fence, but similar. So I just wanted to give you an update. I value all your feedback. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer. Otherwise, that's just a quick update.
So, so the buckthorn issue, are you saying we're thinking about removing it in all the village-owned areas? Is that what we're saying?
It is listed in the ordinance as a noxious plant, so therefore we have to eliminate it. However, it is on a large portion of village-owned property. It is also on county property. And if we look at Flag Creek, the area around Flag Creek between Keokuk, so to speak, and the tollway, there's a lot of buckthorn there. So if we remove the buckthorn, then people will have a clear sight line
Yeah.
to the tollway and increase in sound. So it is a slippery slope for balancing, so to
Yeah.
speak.
It's awful. I mean, it's everywhere. But
And John has been working on trying to get an estimate. I think if we're going to do anything like that, we need to know our own house, how many years will it take to get it off the, village property, county property, tollway property. And so I don't think we have the answer yet, but
We're trying to get estimates now.
of removing it?
Yes,
And then do you have to replace it with something right away?
we would replace it with something right away because that is our tree ordinance.
Yeah, yeah. And I imagine, like, into the creek, it might just really cause it to,
Well, the
Oh.
issue with buckthorn is because it's an invasive species, if we remove it, the probability of it coming back in a relatively shorter period of time is pretty great. Now, it takes, a little bit to grow, I think, but it will be a never-ending process for us.
yeah.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question, like, how would we structure the removal? Because I've cut a lot down on my property and it tends to send up new shoots, like
Yeah,
it's like a,
everywhere.
multiple-headed monster. So it'd be interesting to decide what the plan was and how, is it gonna be dug up? Is it gonna be cut down? That's a good question.
yeah, and I think, again, we're just talking about it. We haven't got there yet.
So, just out of curiosity, with the Wolf Road sidewalk plans, do we have any estimate yet on how much additional footage from the existing roadway that would kind of move into the yards of the people that have homes along there?
Let's see. Well, they're going to add a center turn lane, so that's 15 or 16 feet, John, roughly. And then figure 5 feet of grass, 5 feet of sidewalk on each side, so that's 17 feet. I believe we would get close to the right-of-way, but not all the way to the right-of-way.
So some of that construction conceivably then might involve taking out some of that existing buckthorn
Oh.
anyway,
I think absolutely.
which is good for us as village.
And the buckthorn's the stuff they cut back, right, on Wolf Road like a year or two ago? That's
Yes.
it.
They
got
try
these
to do it every
glossy
year.
Right.
leaves on it. Yeah, when you
Okay.
look at it, the leaves are really glossy, and actually the bark is a little bit glossy looking too. It
And
kind of
that's that
stands
whole
out.
area along Joliet Road too, that was really pretty actually, like a river was running through it almost. or that
So
whole area.
one of the things also is, instead of the ditch drainage on Wolf Road, we would be looking at storm sewers. So,
So again, the look would be like north of Plainfield Road,
So
Wolf
I,
Road.
I'm sorry.
That's the goal.
So I think as part of that discussion, which includes the Wolf Road improvements and sidewalk, as well as the buckthorn, kind of rolls into the Wolf Road fence conversation as well. I know when we had a larger discussion here in winter of last year, there were a lot of people that seemed to think that having an extension of that fence for those residents on Wolf Road wouldn't be as problematic as the other, property fences within the village. So,
That was on the survey you did, right? I think, or not
yes.
that you
Yes, it
did,
was.
but was done.
yeah. So I definitely think that when those plans for Wolf come out, I would expect that those residents would probably be asking about that because of the privacy issue and, those that have kids and things along that area. So I think that's going to be a viable conversation.
And I think that again, it's going to be, I think 3 years, best case could be 5 years before any work. So we have some time to, one, talk about it, gather input. And again, I'm not saying we're going to do fences or we're not going to do fences, but, if we do, is it standard? What kind of landscaping, or do we, leave it up to everybody else? So anyway, that's the future as we proceed.
So just out of curiosity, you mentioned that there were a number of people that were concerned about those letters that were going out about the violations. Was there any general consensus feedback, where they just didn't know, or they kind of what was the message, I guess, that the population was coming back to us with?
I will try to give some points, but I don't want to be reflective of everything. But we've had it forever, ever since we've been here. Like with sheds, we have a one-car garage. We don't have we don't have a basement. Most of the houses don't have other than a one-car garage. So space is a problem. It's just, why are you doing it now? It's been a long time. I think those are the big things. It'll hurt our resale value if we have to take them down.
Just for comparison, the home that's currently on Hiawatha that's listed for sale that did have a fence, they did remove it a couple weeks ago. So just for
Right.
reference.
That was one that John did, and that worked. And then in the 45 acres, there was the family that had the daughter with a disability that's stipulated by the court order that when they leave, they need to take it down, and that was taken down. But the fences have been there a long time. I don't know if we know they were put in, 50 years ago or 10 years ago. A lot of them have been there a while. Same with the sheds.
Yeah.
So anyway, more to come. Again, the board is working through all these issues, and Thank you.
I had a thought about the buckthorn. Are we doing anything to inform our residents that, this is not a good thing? If you have buckthorn, take it down?
We typically do that in smoke signals.
Okay, because that's a good message.
We also gave the message about fences and sheds in the last edition of smoke signals, and nobody called me to say, hey.
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't think we've done a good job of communicating that we may force the village to take it out. But I don't think we're close to that.
Yeah.
Because again, we don't even know what it would take to do our stuff.
Yeah.
So
But, it's all going to work together, if the village goes to all that trouble and the residents don't do anything. Because I see it everywhere. A lot of people just have it. Yeah.
yeah,
I used to. I got rid of most of mine, I think.
Thank you.
Some research about it. Was unaware or why it's bad and all that either.
Morton
But,
Arboretum
oh.
has a whole thing on it.
Hey,
Yeah.
John, are there any grants that we could get as a village that if we did make the effort to remove it, we could get funding to replant native tree species or something in place of it?
Not aware of that specifically, but it's something we can look at. And if you watch this Thursday's board meeting, our Public Works Superintendent, who is now our village arborist, will be commenting specifically on the buckthorn issue in the village.
Okay, good.
So John didn't hear this today. I don't think you talked to Linda, but I heard today that there's a program that either the Forest Preserve or Cook County is putting on where they will come help you eradicate the buckthorn. And it was from one of our condo associations, supposedly. So I asked Linda to check into that. Did you?
The MWR, the sanitary district, does have some resources available, and Don is going to comment about that on Thursday. I just don't have the particulars.
Very good. Well, that was great. Thank you. Thanks for all the current news.
Thanks, Tom.
So let's talk about chicken coops. Anything new that we're not aware of as our board?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah.
Were
And,
there
and
any-
will you be hearing the issue at the board meeting on Thursday?
No, until you guys make a formal recommendation. so
Oh, yeah,
It's gonna linger here,
I see, okay.
hopefully for,
Were,
I
were-
personally struggle with us beating up chicken coops, and no one's asking us to. No one's coming and pleading and petitioning us
I will,
and telling us their
Okay.
case and, okay, let me hear you, but I don't think we should just arbitrarily beat
okay,
it up.
I will
Uh-huh.
invite the two families who reached out to me to come before you at the next meeting.
That's a very good point. I like that.
Or hold off.
Yeah.
If it's that important to them, I would think they'd come and plead their case, and not plead their case, just inform us.
It's a-
What are we not thinking about?
It's a good time because we're dealing with all the shed issues at this time, so how can, it's all the same issue in one sense. Okay, so we're gonna talk about that in September. Any other items? Anybody have anything on their minds?
The power line on Blackhawk, right, that getting fixed?
Say again?
The power line that's down?
Yep.
It's been like, what, 2 days? And
Okay.
if we could get a sign even at the bottom of Wabansie there, so people don't have to constantly turn around, because that was happening earlier on my way here.
Oh, I didn't know that was down. I haven't gone that way.
Yeah, I know.
From
Last night it was,
yesterday's storm?
yeah,
Oh,
I think so. But then there was like 3 cars, it was kind of, everyone got stuck going up Blackhawk from Wabansie there, because, and they're all trying to turn around, because we have the
oh.
horses there.
I was unaware of that, so I will reach out to ComEd and Public Works.
Cool. I just brought it up. I was on the way here and I had to turn around and there's like 3 cars all trying to do 3-point turns, you know.
So are there people without power in the village?
I don't know. We have it.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't have any reports of anybody without power.
Okay,
I think they might just be down, but they're not broken.
I see, yeah. Okay, any other points of discussion? Okay, how about a motion to adjourn then?
motion? No, please.
Dan? And second?
I will second that
And
motion.
Danielle, and all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, very good meeting. Thank you, everybody.